Hello, I am Peter Okwacha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa condemns the latest spate of xenophobic attacks in the country, calling on security agencies to arrest the perpetrators. More than 500 cases of cholera have been recorded in Mozambique since Cyclone Idai, and there are fears the numbers could rise. Algerian state media says the country's embattled president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, will resign by April the 28th.
We want a total change, a total change. Even the ruling party has to be cast aside.
Also on the program, empowerment through music. We meet Badia Bourizi, the Tunisian singer who's received the Aga Khan Music Award for social activism.
People from my generation, we're not ready to be silenced.
And in sports, with just a few months to the Africa Cup of Nations, a big blow for Moroccan defender Achraf Hakimi. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the latest spate of xenophobic attacks in the country and called on security agencies to arrest perpetrators. He said the violence, which mostly targeted Malawian and other African nationals in KwaZulu-Natal, was regrettable. Last week, dozens of people were forced from their homes by angry mobs who also looted shops. Our South Africa correspondent Milton Nkosi reports.
Yes, welcome to a rather wet and gloomy Johannesburg. Yes, indeed, the Minister of International Affairs, Lindiwe Sisulu, met with African diplomats today in the capital, Pretoria. They were trying to resolve the problem of attacks on African migrants in the coastal province of KwaZulu-Natal. It is reported that dozens of Malawians were forced from their homes into makeshift shelter because their shops were looted by locals. But also it is not entirely clear of the two people who were reportedly killed whether they were indeed Malawians. It now sounds like they may well have been South Africans. The ambassador from the Democratic Republic of Congo, who is also the Dean of Ambassadors here in South Africa, Ambassador Mpoku, said that he's not interested in titles whether this was xenophobia or criminality. He just wants the problem to be solved. So the meeting today resolved that there has to be another meeting on Friday after facts on the ground have been thoroughly investigated. But also there was a caution from the ambassador from Namibia about the false pictures that have been spread on social media. People are sharing pictures that don't even come from this continent, that did not actually happen in the violence that is being reported. So today, South Africans are holding their breaths to see how they can resolve this problem, because throughout the country, it is largely peaceful coexistence between those who are migrants from the African continent and the locals here in South Africa.
That was our South Africa correspondent Milton Nkosi there. Well, earlier today, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa released a statement saying African development depends on the increased movement of people, goods and services between different countries for all of us to benefit. We will not allow criminals to set back these processes. Well, Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa, Emmanuel Mwamba, joins us now from Johannesburg. Could you just explain to us a bit more, Mr. Ambassador, what came out of this meeting with the Internal Affairs Minister today?
The meeting went very well because as African diplomats who are affected, our nationals are living in South Africa, raised the alarm that this could be xenophobic attacks, and before they spread anywhere, that they should be stemmed and stopped. So the meeting went extremely very well. South African officials, led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, assured us that there'll be no further attacks and that police are on this case.
Now, do Zambians and other foreign nationals living in South Africa now feel a bit safer following this meeting than they did last week?
You should remember that there's been history to these attacks against foreign nationals, with the worst that occurred in 2008, where we lost 60 foreign nationals. So the history haunts us. Although the matter might appear isolated that occurred in Durban, it raises anxieties and fears that this might spread. So we are now assured that the government of South Africa is on this matter.
We've been given those assurances in the past, like you said. You know, these are attacks that take place all the time. Do you think the government of South Africa is doing enough to protect foreign nationals within its borders?
In fact, that was our concern, that the frequency of these attacks is becoming regular. That the last attacks happened in 2015. We had another one in 2016 and 2017. And these attacks last week. We are looking for long-lasting measures that will stop this. Africa is talking about a borderless Africa, free trade area. It's talking about us integrating. So how will we integrate when there are these xenophobic tendencies and xenophobic feelings in which we are calling our people to be one and to be working as one people in Africa?
Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned the word xenophobia there. I listened to quite an interesting analysis earlier today where somebody said, well, this is not actually xenophobia, it is Afrophobia. Black foreign nationals are being targeted whilst white foreign nationals from these countries would not have been targeted at all by these black South Africans.
True, the people that have been affected since 2008 have all been black Africa, but we have incidences where even Bangladeshis were affected. But whatever the term, we shouldn't have these anti-foreign feelings against our nationals. South Africa is a very large economy. It will naturally attract people that wish to seek opportunities. Our young people across Africa might go to Europe or might come to South Africa. The African Union has been talking about facilitating that migration, legalizing that migration, so that people do not fall foul with the law, that they are not illegal immigrants, and therefore they resort to issues of crime and these vices that we are seeing.
Okay, Emmanuel Mwamba, Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa, speaking to us live there from Johannesburg. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. Parliamentary and local elections have taken place in 3 areas of the Democratic Republic of Congo 3 months after they were postponed. People voted in Beni, Butembo in the east of the country, where more than 650 people have died from the Ebola virus, and Yumbi in western DR Congo, where they were postponed because of ethnic violence. A Senegalese-born woman, Sibeth Ndiaye, has been appointed as the French government's spokeswoman in a new cabinet with changes made by President Emmanuel Macron. The 39-year-old, born in Dakar, worked as Mr. Macron's media advisor during his presidential campaign. Ms. Ndiaye obtained her French citizenship only 3 years ago. And Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle was shot dead in the U.S. city of Los Angeles on Sunday, sparking an outpouring of grief from fellow celebrities. The 33-year-old Grammy-nominated rapper, who has Eritrean roots, was shot in front of his own clothing store at close range by a man who fled in a getaway car. The number of confirmed cholera cases after Cyclone Idai ripped through parts of southern Africa continues to rise. There are fears the aftermath may prove to be even deadlier, with 1.8 million people displaced after entire villages were submerged. Cyclone Idai wreaked havoc across Zimbabwe, Malawi and Mozambique over 2 weeks ago. More than 500 cholera cases have been recorded so far, but there are still parts of Mozambique that agencies have been unable to reach, so the figure could be higher. The city of Beira, one of the hardest hit areas in Mozambique, recorded its first death from the disease last week. The country has struggled to deal with it in the past. The most recent outbreak was seen in February 2018. The World Health Organization says cholera vaccines for 800,000 people are due to arrive tonight, but they'll be distributed to those in need. Well, I spoke to Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, Regional Director for Africa for the World Health Organization, and began by asking her to explain how her teams are helping those in need.
I think that the rescue efforts have largely done their work. So many people are now in resettlement or in temporary accommodation camps around Beira, and I think other people have been reached as well in other areas, Buzi, Nyamatanda, other places that have been affected. So it's a matter now of having established these tents, the ones that I visited in Beira, settlements where families are settled, men, women, and children, and basic healthcare services as well are being provided to the people. I was able to see what various partners are doing to make sure that basic healthcare is available to these people, at least in Beira.
And to make things even more difficult, on the ground now, there's the outbreak of cholera, which has now passed 500 people. What are you doing to ensure that this doesn't spread even more? Because it has doubled, the number has doubled in just a few days.
I would say that we are seeing an increase in the number of cases. That is not surprising. The rollout of the vaccination campaign, I am very hopeful will help us to get on top of the outbreak.
Dr. Moeti, thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy. We do appreciate it, and we wish you all the best. Now, speaking there to Dr. Matshidiso Moeti from the World Health Organization. This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwoche. Still to come, Mimi with the sports and a special homecoming for the winners of the World Cross Country Championships. I'm Peter Okwoche. The top stories this hour. In Durban, South Africa, a number of foreigners have reportedly been displaced following a spate of xenophobic attacks. Today, the country's President Cyril Ramaphosa condemned the violence, calling on security agencies to arrest the perpetrators. And more than 500 cases of cholera have now been recorded in Mozambique since Cyclone Idai, and there are fears the number could rise. State media is reporting that Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika will resign by the 28th of April. His fourth presidential term was due to end then. It comes as he formed a new government after 6 weeks of mass protests. Demonstrators have been demanding that President Bouteflika and his inner circle be removed. Let's look at the sequence of events that led to these developments today. The BBC's Ramzan Karmali reports.
For 6 consecutive Fridays, they've marched on the streets of cities across Algeria. They want big changes to the way their country is run and want new leadership. But President Bouteflika, so far, is proving a hard man to shift from power. At the start of March, he offered to step down within a year if he won elections, due to take place in April. Just 9 days later, he changed his mind and said he would not seek re-election and cancelled those elections. But finally, on Sunday, there was a big change to the government, with 21 out of 27 ministers being replaced. But still, the man at the top remains, for now. This week, the army chief, who protesters also want to see step down, Lieutenant General Gaid Salah, called for the use of Article 102, which allows for the position of president to be declared vacant if the leader is seen to be unfit to rule. President Abdul Aziz Bouteflika played a prominent role in the ruling National Liberation Front, in shaping Algeria after the War of Independence against the French in the early 60s. He eventually took the post of presidency in 1999. Since taking power, he won 4 elections, but he's rarely been seen in public since 2013, when he suffered a stroke. Over 2,000 Algerian nationals living in France gathered on Sunday, and they want action now.
Changement total. Changement total.
We want a total change, a total change. Even the ruling party has to be cast aside. They are the great devil of Algeria. That's what they are. If we get rid of them, everything will go well.
In general, the protests in Algeria have been peaceful, but on Friday, police used tear gas and water cannon on the crowds in Algiers. It is thought around 1 million people demonstrated that day in the capital. It's not just the president the protesters want rid of. They want those close to him to go too. In fact, one of his inner circle, wealthy businessman and former head of Algeria's employers' organisation, Ali Haddad, was arrested trying to cross into neighbouring Tunisia, according to local media reports. Arresting officials and changing members of the government may not be enough to stop huge protests continuing. Ramzan Karmali, BBC News.
Well, I'm now joined by Mohamed El Assar from BBC Arabic. Mohamed, given the fact that his term was meant to end on the 28th of April anyway, how important is it that Bouteflika is now saying he will leave by the 28th?
This will be decided by the protesters on Friday. So the protests started a few weeks ago. Initially, their biggest demand was for the president not to run for a 5th term despite his illness. Now their demands are much bigger. They want an overhaul of the system. They want a new representative democracy, and they want those associated with the old tenets of power to leave.
And given the fact that he's used this term, I will leave office by the 28th, is it just giving himself a window in case the pressure gets a bit too much, he can leave before the 28th?
Absolutely. So he said he will leave before the end of his term. That gives him the opportunity, if protests escalate, to leave. And it also could be a part of a negotiation tactic with the army and with the opposition to let him and his inner circle and his family leave the country.
He's constituted this interim government, if you like now. Can the interim government continue even after he's left office?
Theoretically, yes. In reality, there are a lot of protests today just over this government announcement. Those who were kept in the government were the Prime Minister, who was the Interior Minister before. He's not very popular, and mostly technocrats and people from the system. The people are mostly demanding an overhaul of the system and an inclusion of the opposition.
And do we now know who's going to take over from Abdelaziz Bouteflika, given the fact that he's now formally said, or state media says he's formally announced he will leave by the 28th of April?
He said, his statement said that the interim government would pilot that transitional period. But the problem is that many Algerians believe that this doesn't come from the president, who's been incapacitated for years, who's wheelchair-bound, who struggles to speak or to raise his hand. So they're wondering, where are these decisions coming from? And
just very briefly, Mohamed, will these changes, him saying he'll resign and this new government, will this appease the protesters? Very briefly.
I don't think so. There's been a few announcements. None have deterred the opposition or the protesters.
Okay, so likely to see more protests. Mohamed Al Assar, thank you very much from BBC Arabic. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for sports. Mimi?
Now, with the Africa Cup of Nations just 3 months away, Morocco defender Achraf Hakimi is in a race against time to be fit for the tournament. He'll miss the rest of the season after breaking a bone in his foot during Borussia Dortmund's 2-0 win over Wolfsburg on Sunday. The 20-year-old, who is on loan from Real Madrid, will return to the Spanish capital for an operation. The final game of the Bundesliga is on the 18th of May, with the Africa Cup of Nations due to begin in Egypt on the 21st of June. And in the English Premier League, Arsenal, who host Newcastle at home at the Emirates, will kick off shortly. They have African stars that will be hoping to get on the score sheet, such as Gabon's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. It's a chance for the Gunners to go third in the table if they can avoid defeat. A win will take them 2 points ahead of Spurs and Manchester United. It also could be Newcastle's first win away since mid-December. For Arsenal manager Unai Emery, he's targeting a top 4 finish.
Be competitive, play consistently to do the better position in the table. And now I think we are taking a big performance as Manchester United, as Chelsea, as Tottenham. But each match is now very important, and I trust in us, but also I know we need to do a lot.
To athletics, it was a hero's welcome for Uganda as Joshua Cheptegei as he returned to Kampala. He won the men's senior IAAF World Cross Country Championships in Denmark over the weekend, making him the first Ugandan to do so. His compatriot Jacob Kiplimo came in second. And defending champion Kenya's Jeffrey Kamworo came in third. And in the women's senior race, a win for Kenya as Helen Obiri, who took part for the first time, became the first woman to win an individual title, global title, indoor, outdoor and cross country. And Jacob Kiplimo, upon arriving back home today, was thrilled about Uganda's performance.
There's great news, you know. Everyone is happy. This is the first time for Uganda to win a senior, and to win the title was fantastic for all the teams, even for the juniors and women. But we are happy about this performance we have made.
Now, the 7th Arab Triathlon, Aquathlon and African Triathlon Cup came to an end over the weekend in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. The competition brought in the competitors from all over the world. The event was given added status as the elite triathlons carried qualification points for next year's Olympic Games in Tokyo. But there was an opportunity for many others to have a go and take part in different races, drawing people from the age of 8 to over 80. Ooh, I can barely even do a lap in the swimming pool. That's all the sport, Pete.
With the triathlon, why? I don't get it.
Have a go.
Thanks, Mimi. Now, musicians have been honored this weekend for promoting traditions and cultures that are inspired by Islam to the younger generations at the Aga Khan Music Awards in the Portuguese capital, Lisbon. One of the winners of the night was Abadia Bourizi, a Tunisian singer. She was awarded the prize for social integration. She told us what she thinks of the revolution in her country and the impact it may have had.
I know that the picture now is not very bright, but I think something fundamentally changed. And maybe the problem now is that it's the same generation that knew power, that were in power, that still are in power. But I don't believe in revolution anyway. I believe in evolution. It was just a climax of something. So from that perspective, I think, yeah, like now kids or people from my generation, we're not ready to be silenced.
Now to my favorite story of the day. Ghanaian teacher Saki Percy found fame on Instagram after a video of him dancing for his students went viral. He says encouraging his students to dance breaks down the barriers and allows them to come to him with their problems. Check it out.
Due to the video, I've gotten a lot of followers on Instagram, everywhere. My name is Saki Percy. I'm a creative art teacher at Ubo in the Eastern region. The unique thing I'm using now is to dance with my kids to improve their confidence during classes hours. As I implemented the dance, they feel free by asking me whatever is bothering them. Whenever I am done with the lesson and ask a question, they are able to tell me because they don't see me as a caricature or something like that. We have a lot of talent, those who can sing, those who can do the drama. So I want to just generalize it in a way that everyone will have his or her fill.
Teachers, they're brilliant, aren't they? I mean, they basically teach us everything that we know. He's a great guy. Now, don't forget that you can get in touch with me and some of the team on Twitter. As for me, I'm at Okwoche. But that's it from Focus on Africa. From me, Peter Okwoche, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.